What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you with another 2024-2025 NBA season look ahead. We are on to the Los Angeles Lakers, and you all loyal listeners know what that means. I get to speak with my guy, Jabari Davis. He is the brains behind and sometimes co-host of Mad Boosties with Miles and Jack on iHeart. You can find it on the NBA's official website. They do have a low bar for guests because I've been on it quite a few times at this point. Jabari, how the heck are you doing?
First of all, we do not have a low bar. When we get the big names like you, we actually kind of celebrate about it.
Who are you more excited about getting, Vince Carter or me?
It's right there, man.
Right,
it's right there. No, honestly, thank you thank you very much for every time you have blessed us with your presence, and thank you for continuing to have me, so I can ramble and whine about my Lakers.
I will say, Mad Boosties, I always forget, and I've been on the show like 5 times now.
Yep.
I always forget about the lightning round at the end. I don't know why. And then it comes and I'm like, oh shit. Like
it's never gonna be all that challenging, but I do get it. It catches some folks off guard. And to be honest with you, I'm gonna revamp it, for the next time you're on to make
Jack
it more
got me this past time because he was giving me like New York stuff, and I'm like, I'm a Long Island New Yorker. Like, I'm never in the city. I hate the city. And he's like, what's the best beer? I'm like, oh crap.
Oh, you can blame me for that. Those are my questions. I come up with those. The question should have read, and I'm acknowledging this. It should have read, when you're in the city, what's the best slice? But yeah, I'll take the blame for that one.
I'm sure there are many people who are listening to that were mad at my choice, because I think the last time I had a city slice of pizza was like pre-pandemic.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Well, here to talk about the Lakers, though. Your Lakers. I'm assigning them to you. I don't want responsibility.
Hey, I'll take them.
Man. We have to start with last season. Where you are right now, we're heading into 24-25. What were some of your biggest takeaways from last year, and was moving on from, I know the answer to this question, but was moving on from Darvin Ham like the right call?
All right, that's a great two-parter to start things off. My honest assessment is, yes, it was the right call, but two things can be true here. Darvin was far from perfect. He certainly showed some, regressions of sorts, when it comes to how he managed rotations and his ability to get through to the guys. At least it appeared to be. But the ultimate reality is that, that team was going nowhere, last year. And I honestly believe that I won't say the root cause, but I think the roster construction, and obviously the availability of the supporting players, I think all of that factors in. So ultimately, we all know the coach is going to be the first one to go, but it also did appear that he probably was a little bit over his head.
What was it specifically? Like, was there a biggest factor? Because I saw a lot of complaints, and a lot of them were, and I could see it, like some of the rotation questions being way too married to Taurean Prince, not giving Max Christie enough run. It's like, I understood a lot of it, but a lot of the way that Lakers fans and even some of the media members spoke was just in this, like, these opaque terms. It's like, what was like the core issue with Dart? You just think he wasn't ready, like, to handle every aspect of the job?
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm sure we're going to get to this, coming up here shortly when you bring up JJ. But the reality is, the Lakers are an extremely difficult job. But regardless of who's on the roster, it comes with a certain level of heightened expectations that, honestly, a lot of people aren't necessarily going to be ready for, and I wouldn't anticipate them being ready for it. I'm not making excuses for them, but sometimes the reality is the reality. He again, I will go back to the roster construction. I will go back to the unavailability of some key players, and acknowledge that factors in. But ultimately, you get to a place where it's like, okay, well, what are you doing with what you have? And my chief complaint, you already alluded to it. I think Max Christie should have gotten some run, especially if you weren't going to be, active at the deadline, and you weren't going to, do anything in order to improve. I'm not even talking about this summer. If you weren't going to do anything to improve the roster, well, then why not try to maximize what you have on that roster? And I just don't think he did a good job of that. The over-reliance on Taurean Prince is understandable, given that he has a history with them. And you know what, quite frankly, given
he
that
got him again, too.
He certainly did. He sure did. But, and if we're keeping it real, outside of a rough start to, a rough stretch to start the season, Taurean was a very solid player for them, especially over the second half of the year. But I mean, you want him playing great basketball in 15 to 20 minutes a night and not 30 to 35 minutes a night. And the Lakers were just at a place where there simply wasn't enough trust in a young player in Max Christie and some of the other young guys on the roster. And again, I don't want to hammer Darvin Ham, because I do think he was better in his first year than he was in his second year. Some of that could be catching lightning in a bottle, sure, but I felt as though, okay, like there's at least something to build upon. Whereas in last year, I felt like, oh no, there has been a regression. It didn't seem like he was getting through to the guys as effectively, and part of that could be just general frustration, or part of it could be like there needed to be they needed more from him. But ultimately, hey, I wish him the best of luck. The Lakers, while again, I think it was the right decision, I'm just not sure it ultimately was the right decision with where they went.
Are putting, I will say, if you think the problem with the Lakers last year was coaching, they're putting that to the test by making virtually no changes and then just flipping the head coach. Now, I have very specific questions about JJ Redick, but I want to know generally, what were your thoughts about them going to another? Like, did it shock you that they went for another first-time head coach?
I should stop being surprised, and that's not a cop-out. I should stop being surprised. Look, I continue. Like last year, I was saying the Lakers are not a first-year job, and the reason it's not like a Laker pride thing or anything like that. It's just I know what comes with that job. I know what comes with that gig, and generally, you don't want that to be your very first experience coaching. Darvin Ham and and others have had like extensive assistant careers, so at least there was that like a player development desires or whatnot. But with the JJ thing, look, I wasn't stunned. But because look, there was a 3-month layout in terms of a show alongside LeBron. But part of me says, okay, either you guys have nailed this or you guys are completely clueless. There really is no in between. So obviously, as a fan, I'm going to hope that they have nailed this. But as a person that's responsible for a lot of content, at the end of the day, it will be entertaining either way, and it will definitely provide folks like you and I and plenty of your fellow writers with all types of stuff to write about this year.
So, do you have any insight into or expectations for how the Lakers stylistically might change under JJ Redick relative to what we've seen over the past 2 seasons, or even more than that?
I think more than anything, I liked in his initial press conference, he mentioned specifically the need to be adaptable to your roster and in your game planning, and how, and specifically how the game is continuing to, continually evolving. I don't want to make this, about bashing Darvin Ham, because it wasn't just him. I didn't see a lot of it with Vogel. I didn't see a lot of it with a couple, Lakers coaches, but you need to have a modern NBA offense. You need to have a modern NBA, offensive approach. And I just did not necessarily see that over the last couple of years. I think we were, I think the Lakers were, far too over reliant on ISO basketball at times. I think they were, they didn't, for whatever reason, for the life of me, I couldn't understand it, but they didn't utilize, enough AD and LeBron pick and roll. Like when they went to it down the stretch of the season, it actually worked, incredibly well. But for whatever reason, they didn't have any stretch where they dedicated to it.
Sometimes I wonder, is there something about that we're missing? Because I feel the same way, and I felt it about, remember Giannis and Dame in Milwaukee last year. There was a point like Doc Rivers tried to explore it more, but remember the Kevin Durant era Warriors, where it was like, why aren't we just running Steph and Kevin Durant pick and rolls all the time, because they're unstoppable?
Well, okay, and so the thing with those, like with a scenario like that, it's like, okay, well, I guess both of those are perimeter players, so maybe. Fair. But I still agree with you. I still agree that you would have seen at least some of it, here and there. With LeBron and AD, it's like, okay, you got the guy that's going to have the ball in his hands the majority of the time, and you have one of the best rim runners. You have one of the best lob threats, if not the best lob threat that we have seen in quite some time. Why wouldn't you want to utilize that? Again, not to pick on anybody, but for my money, it would have made sense. In my mind, it would have made sense to do that. So now moving forward, I looked in the, like ahead in the notes, and I know that we're going to talk about AD as a hub, but I'm interested in seeing that. I'm interested in seeing what he can do with the ball in his hands more often. I've seen it in stretches. He's made, he's had games and stretches where it's like, okay, that is excellent playmaking. Working well out of the pinch post, working out well out of the high post, and even working off, having some big to big action out of the post. I love that. I anticipate seeing more of that. But ultimately, I don't know what to expect from JJ. Like, this is all going to be new. Look, I usually use the term cautiously optimistic. I'm drawing a blank.
Curious, morbidly curious.
Maybe that probably is accurate. Morbidly curious where this is going to go.
I have a follow-up on AD, obviously, but do you think that of the two things that I would be interested to see if he puts more of an emphasis on, the Lakers have just punted on offensive rebounding for like the past 3 years. And I think there's this sentiment that you can't be a good offensive rebounding team and also a good defensive team. My two pushbacks to that are, one, the Lakers ended up not being that good of a defensive team anyway last year. They were like 15th or 16th or whatever in points left per possession. And I think 4 of the top 10 defenses also ended up ranking in the top 10 of offensive rebounding. If it wasn't top 10, it was top 12 defenses. Do they have the personnel to make that more of a focus, especially just because from my perspective, and the second point, and I'll say it now just because it'll tie into that, is if you're not going to have the 3-point volume, because they did not, they shot the hell out of the ball after the All-Star break last year. They still weren't taking enough threes. But if you're not going to be a 3-point shooting team or a team that uses a ton of motion, and you're like, how many times, like, you're watching the Lakers way more than I am. It's like off the ball, there's not a lot happening a lot of the time. So if you're not going to utilize those elements, like, don't they have the personnel to be like, hey, get after it on the offensive glass?
You would have thought that, like, straight up, you would have thought. And that's the thing. So I do think there will be a shift in the mindset there. If I'm not mistaken, JJ also, mentioned that guys will be crashing the boards. He will, place an emphasis. He and his staff will place an emphasis on that. Look, anybody can gang rebound. Anybody can, and when I say that, I maybe that's an exaggeration. Most NBA players can, if they want to, if they're put in a position to succeed, there's going to be some success. I think it really is just a matter of, it has to be a mindset that's instilled by the coaching staff. Okay. From JJ Redick to Nate McMillan, finding that defensive mindset, finding finding how you're going to attack. I guess I could say I'm most interested in that heading in, like, how they're going to attack on both sides of the ball, what the mindset, what the overall mindset's going to be. Yes, I would love to see more, weak side screens and weak side action. I'd love to see more, instead of the guy just camping in the corner, slashing down the baseline, running up, like, just do something different that makes you less predictable, please. If you're the Lakers, that's all I ask for the first 25 games, be less predictable.
I'm still dying to talk about those AD comments that JJ made, but I have to start here. So what do you make of their decision to, outside of the coaching change, outside of drafting Dalton Knecht and Bronny James, you have stayed pat for the most part? And is that, I understand their financial situation is difficult. It's not unnavigable. And at least they publicly made a big deal about, well, like, we're beneath the second apron thanks to LeBron. What the second apron for, just, I don't want to, like, for the cap dorks might appreciate this, but for anyone who's not a cap dork, what the Lakers have essentially done is, one, it's meaningless because they could have just made a trade over the second apron and aggregated salary and then just finished beneath the second apron as part of that trade. But in theory, what they've now done is they can aggregate players together as long as they're taking back the same amount or less money in a trade. I think that that is useful flexibility to have. They have not used it. And so my question to you is, do we read into it as, like, are they actually trying to prioritize the post LeBron? I mean, look at the commentary around the JJ hire. He's going to be great to develop Austin Reaves, who, by the way, is closer to 30 than 23 at this point, I think. And then Max Christie, who, I like Max Christie. At the end of the day, he's still Max Christie. Or is it more like, okay, they were in on Jonas Valanciunas, on Klay Thompson, on DeMar DeRozan a little bit. Like, was it more so about a lack of opportunities and hit rate that they didn't do anything? Or do you actually think that there is, maybe it's a dual belief of well, we're trying to plan around the LeBron era, so we want to move these future picks, or we actually believe in this team and we think coaching was the only issue last year. Coaching and health, of course.
I'm going to make a very crass reference here, and feel free to cut it. That's completely fine.
Oh, I will cut nothing.
But have you seen the movie New Jack City?
I have not.
Okay, well, there's a person that is he has some issues with substances, and he mentions the character's name is Pookie, and you go with judge that as you will, but he mentions, man, I want to stop it, but it keeps on calling me. It's just calling me. The Los Angeles Lakers can talk a good game, can talk about how they're going to develop this and develop that and build around this. They are still big game hunting. I do not care how that sounds. I know how it makes me feel, because it's like, if you screw this up again, you're going to put the roster in, you're going to, for one, bury JJ in his very first year if you make the wrong choice, and two, you're going to hamstring yourself to where you won't have any flexibility. I think that yes, it would have been nice to be able to get in on Jonas Valanciunas, and I still think that's a possibility, quite frankly, because actually. An expert that we recently had on Boosties broke down how Washington is going to be selling at a very high rate. Now that's going to be difficult, because all of a sudden, where you might have been able to get them in the offseason just outright, now you're going to be competing with other teams that are looking to bolster their roster and their rotation. But unfortunately, I think the Lakers are still of the mindset of, we can tinker around the edges, or we can swing for the fences. I mean, hey, the mystery box. I mean, that's a boat, but what about in the box? What about the box? I'm being silly, but but that's where I think it kind of lies. I think that they were trying to swing and hit big over the offseason, and they simply couldn't. And that will continue to be the mindset heading into this year, all the way up through the deadline. We'll see, but we'll really, and you mentioned, they were in on the conversations on like 5 or 6 like impressive names, but ultimately, if you don't get it done, that's all just cute. Like, don't talk about it, be about it. And if you're not going to get it done, don't keep selling me about nonsense about, oh, well, we were right there. That's great.
I love that. If you're going to talk about it, be about it. I love that line.
Do it.
But the way you're framing it, they actually have cover then, because if you look at what happened this summer, there was no like big name that shook loose. Like there was Paul George, but they never could have been in on that really. No. And like Larry Marketing, they never would have had enough to get him. And so that gives them cover to say, well, like, there wasn't anyone available, but you're going to run into the same issues every time of, if it's a player that other teams want, you are never going to have the best package for them.
Yeah.
And so what side of the fence do you fall on? Whereas would you prefer that they tried to, I don't want to say futz and fiddle on the margins, because you can do that with minimums, but like, would you prefer if they had to move first round equity or make trades and it brought back multiple role players, maybe some wings that like, okay, they're not going to set us up for the future, but they very clearly augment our team now? Or do you support the idea of, if a player wants to go to LA and makes a stink about it, where it's if a Trae Young shakes loose, or even if a Zach LaVine, if you can wind up getting him without giving up a first round pick at that point, because of how far perception has shifted. But like, if you're waiting for something, even Trae Young seems overly ambitious for them, because I can't, unless his stock has fallen that far around the league. It's the Lakers. I think by the way, I think they can offer real stuff, like 2 Lakers picks and swaps, like looking out into the distance, plus salary. That's real stuff. But if other teams want Trae Young, or if LaMelo Ball shakes loose, you're never going to have the best trade package. And I'm asking you this because I honestly don't know where I lie, because if you told me that they can get like the big name, that's the route I'm going, because it makes more sense to maximize what you have going with AD beyond LeBron. But I just can't envision a scenario where they are going to be the team that has the offer that gets that guy.
Because I'm right there with you, I would rather them go ahead and put in work on this roster. I'd rather them go ahead and address the holes. I'd rather them go ahead and address the redundancy that you have in your backcourt when you have an Austin Reaves and a D'Angelo Russell. And this is there. Sometimes fans get super sensitive anytime I mention a name, and I didn't make this so. I didn't make them redundant. I didn't make it to where, that's a rough backcourt against certain matchups in postseason scenarios. The reality did that.
Yeah.
I think I'm sorry. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I'm not here to make you feel better about the squad. You see it, I see it, we all see it. We just hopeful. But if I were them, I would, honestly, I think I think a Walker Kessler deal could be done. And
Okay.
I think that does help you. I think a Valanciunas deal could be
So
done.
you want
And
another big,
I
like a
definitely want
primary type big on
I
this team.
definitely want another primary big. Because look, this is the thing. Like, it's cute when people want to be jokey about AD and like, oh, he doesn't want to. Yeah, he doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to. In the year that he played a majority of the 4 and just played 5 in stretches and down the stretch of games is the year they actually won. So I'm of the opinion, why don't you give him what he's been asking you for? You brought him in here in order to be if not the driving force, a large part, a large part of the engine. So why not, actually put him in in his best position to be successful? If he's more comfortable playing next to a legitimate 5, don't put Jackson Hayes, who weighs less than my left leg. No disrespect. Less than my left leg at 6 foot. No, get somebody that's not light in the ass that will actually take the pounding throughout the course of the year against the guys like Embiid and against the guys like Joker, so that you can have a healthy and upright AD when it comes to the postseason. I'll be honest with you. To me, it is very obvious that's the way they should have gone, and that's when they've been most successful. So for them to continue to fight it, and you have Darvin Ham coming in last year saying, and I said that I wouldn't make this about him, but he was just most recent. You have him coming in last year saying, well, he's going to play the 5, and we like him best there. Okay, that's great. But if you have a player that is not as comfortable there and actively gets beat up there, acknowledging he played his most games of his career last year, how much how much are you willing to bet that that's going to happen again if he's
Right.
playing bruising minutes? So to me, actually address the stuff. Stop being silly with this. Oh, we might get Trey or we might get a mystery box. Go out and actually build this roster around these guys and give yourself a fighting chance. Because otherwise, we're wasting time here. That's really what we're doing.
And I think there's a number of different ways that you could go with this one, including a couple things you just talked about. But so what is the biggest storyline for the Lakers this season? Is it how JJ Redick fares? Is it do they have the gall to make some, I don't want to call it seismic, but like significant roster upgrades? Or is it something else that's happening on the court? Like if they believe in this product can this team level up internally at all? What does LeBron look like at age 40? How many games do LeBron and AD play in? They played 66 games together last year, and the Lakers still just weren't considered a contender. That's the thing that blows my mind when I see fans say, oh, well, Dalton Knecht's an upgrade over Taurean Prince. And one, you don't get to just say that about a rookie.
Yeah.
Oh, Taurean Prince was miscast, probably relied too much upon by Darvin Ham, but it wasn't like they don't have wings. They still don't have wings.
Still didn't do anything about that.
What is the biggest storyline for you for this team?
I think we've kind of gone over it. It is like there's several things, and none of them are sexy. Sorry, Lakers fans, but it is going to be how JJ and his crew handle this staff. It is going to be how they instill, what type of defensive mindset they instill. But because at the same time as I'm saying, it's about the philosophy and getting everybody to buy in. It's very difficult to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. Okay, I'm sorry. If you don't have the defensive personnel, it's very difficult to put a defensive lineup out there. What you can't, you can perfect it and get the most out of and maximize guys by putting them in better positions and shifting the philosophy in terms of crashing the boards and shifting the philosophy in terms of how, whether you're going to have AD and drop coverage or whatever the case may be. Yes, things can be shifted, but ultimately, it's also a matter of the roster. Again, you can't have 3 non-defenders in your starting 5 every single night. You're not going to be successful in the NBA on in any real or significant manner if you have that scenario. I think and this is the thing. This is the point of contention. Some people think Bam is the most, versatile defender and big defender in the league. Some people, whoever you think it is. I personally have watched AD up close. I've seen what he can do. I've seen what he's been asked to cover for. And I still say, even right now, I'll take AD as the anchor of my defense. but you can't expect him to, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, make miracles happen when you have just total sieves and you have individuals that are being permitted to not really give much of an effort on that end. No disrespect to the legends, but we all know who I'm talking about. For long stretches of the regular season, of course. You can't have that and expect them to be good. So really, what are you going to do with this roster? How are you going to implement, your philosophies? And then really, truly, how are you going to place your players that you do ultimately have? How are you going to put them in the best position to win?
And so you bring up an interesting point about the defense, and they had an offensive uptick after the All-Star break. I think they were third in points scored per possession, but their defense was bottom 5 in the half court during that time. You seem to think that they did some stuff. There is low hanging fruit where it's like, hey, guys, you miss a shot, get your asses back on defense. Yeah. That was something that killed them towards the latter half of last year, especially. Mm-hmm. But do you look at this roster and see a pathway, like any even sort of 5-man combination where you can say, we can lean into one end of the floor, be it offense or defense, without submarining our product on the other end of the floor? And submarining might be hyperbolic in that frame because they have some lineups where it's okay, like the offensive and defensive returns are balanced, but like, do they have the personnel to sustain that over the course of an entire year? Do you think this ends up being a team that in net, when you're looking at the final products, they're always going to have to sacrifice at one end of the floor if they want to maximize what's happening at the other?
I think because of the way the way the roster is constructed, there's always going to be a bit of sacrifice. Like if you go offense heavy, those particular guys are not defenders. Like they just aren't. D'Lo will give you effort. Some of the times on that end, and it's not just a fake effort like slap the ground like Bobby Hurley. He actually is trying out there. He's just not a great defender. Austin is trying out there. He's just not a great defender. Mm-hmm. So like some of it is a matter of not to make that crass reference. You're not making chicken salad. Those aren't good parts to make chicken salad out of. I do think there can be improvements. I think strategically, you can get better than what you were, especially in the second half last year when it felt like they all just said like, hey, screw it, we're just gonna play out the string. And this is the part that hurts the most. They absolutely need the versatility and interchangeability that Jared Vanderbilt brings. They were hey, look, laugh it up. That's fine.
I'm just laughing because of the latest update about. We can get into him and Gabe Vincent too, because that would be the rebuke to all of them sending pass. Like, well, they're basically getting like 2 free agency acquisitions with Vando and Gabe Vincent back. But the latest update on Vando, I think it was Mike Bresnahan, said that he's not sure if he's going to be ready for training camp because he's still dealing with that right leg injury.
All the more reason why they should have gone out and done something with this roster in the offseason. I'm sorry, like that right there is where I will pound the front office and this organization, because if you knew that you missed him all of last year, you couldn't have felt confident. You couldn't have felt like, oh yeah, he'll be back and it'll be all good. No, you should have anticipated, hey, there's at least a chance. There's at least a chance that this is an ongoing thing or something that will pop, rear its ugly head, later on down the road. The situation with Christian Wood. I'm not faulting the medical staff, but what I will say is either one side of the house wasn't having open communication with the other side of the house, or they really did say like, oh no, we're fine. And if they really said, oh no, we're fine, well then we got more problems than we can even get to in this conversation. I'm sorry. You can't tell me that you didn't at least have a thought like, yeah, maybe we should have a backup to our backup. And the fact that they didn't honestly is why we're here now.
And so when you're looking at Vando and even Gabe Vincent specifically, it does feel like they could be skeleton keys in a sense of, if you want 2-way players, Vando, like 2-way is a stretch. But like if he's just if he's shooting and making corner threes, it's it does open up the floor at least a little bit. Defenses still won't care. But Gabe Vincent, is he like kind of the bigger skeleton key there if you're looking for 2-way lineups on this team, if he's able to stay healthy? Because even I feel like, I know he had some moments in Miami, but by and large, like if you want to call him 2-way, like you're really stretching the term of 2-way on the offensive end specifically.
I'm not as high on the prospect of Gabe Vincent as others seem to be. I think he's a solid player that, obviously can contribute, as a rotational guy. But if he's your answer and you're expecting him to, provide enough offense consistently to kind of like make it worthwhile, I just got to be honest with you. I don't see it. I won't lie to you. The unfortunate thing is, I think Vanderbilt is actually more important to them, because here's the thing: if the whole standing in the corner, like if he's not hidden, well, that also is where I want Redick and staff to be more active with this. I don't want a guy like Jared Vanderbilt to just be standing in the corner. I want them to utilize his flexibility. I want them to utilize his athleticism. I want them to move him around, or whomever is in that spot. I want them to be moved around. So again, less predictability, less settling, and honestly, a more modern approach is really what I'm looking forward to. So, and it's what I'm most hopeful for.
So we've heard some variation of this on a number of occasions, and it's not really specific to AD, but LeBron teams about funneling the offense more through somebody else. Now, over the past 3 years, that's been Anthony Davis. And JJ Redick has talked about he wants to use Anthony Davis more as an offensive hub, which I take to mean you mentioned, like the pinch post, the elbow stuff. And he was, by the way, I do think he is an underrated passer, especially when he has space and time. His assist rate on elbow touches last year was basically about the same as Bam Adebayo and Alperen Şengün. The volume was not nearly the level it was for those two, but he plays a different role in the offense right now. So my first question to you on this is, how much do we buy this time that it's actually going to happen? Because if you go back over the past 3 seasons, Anthony Davis's front court touches per 36 minutes, they've remained basically static. They've gone like up and down a little bit. And I just feel like, is this sort of, Kyle Teige of the Dane Moore NBA show likes to say, is this the Lucy with the football meme from Peanuts, where it's like they're saying one thing and then they're just going to rip it away when like this comes to like, it's a nice concept, but in practice, it's never going to happen. So how much do we buy into it actually happening under JJ Redick?
I think it can happen, but much like that's a good reference, and that's how it feels. Because I've been, each year I've been told like it's going to be centered around AD, and this is the thing. I agree with you. We just haven't seen enough of it, but it has been good when we've seen it. I have personally witnessed him get better operating out of the double team. Knowing when to get rid of it. No, it doesn't hurt when you have actual teammates that. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there.
I love how salty you are this year. I'm enjoying.
Oh man, because usually, me, I usually come in, far more cautiously or far more optimistic. To now, I'll be straight up, and you know what? I know we're gonna get there eventually. This is a middle of the pack team that has potential to be halfway decent, but far from a guarantee. So, like, that's the best I can give you. I know, fans want to hear, no, they're a title team. They're a title team. No, they're not. Not as currently constituted. They are not a title team. I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm not saying that Trae Young makes them a title team. I'm not saying that, some combination of either Walker Kessler and another wing. I'm not saying that makes them a title team, but I will say that it would give them a hell of a lot more of a chance. It would, it would put them at least in conversations that they certainly do not deserve to be in at this point.
So to the AD point is, do you think that he is, so let's say that they are willing to use him as more of a hub. Do you view him as someone who is capable of doing that? Let's say during the non-LeBron minutes. And last year, by the way, the Lakers, when AD played without LeBron, they had an above average offensive rating. Yeah. Now the issue becomes, does he need both Austin Reaves and D'Angelo Russell on the floor in those minutes to make sure that that's the case? Or is AD as the hub where it's all right, you pull D'Angelo Russell off, maybe this can all still be tied together?
I think we're going to find out. I honestly I think this could, okay. I'm trying to be delicate about this. This could either be AD's best year as a professional, and I don't know, I'm not saying like he's going to score the most points he's ever scored. I mean, just best all around year as a professional, or his most frustrating year as a professional. And I know that, I'm presenting a lot of extreme scenarios, in this conversation, but like, that's kind of where this team is. There's not a lot of middle ground. I think He will be utilized more. I think that is a good thing. He'll have more opportunities to, to generate offense, to generate just, player movement, to, to make the game easier for his teammates. That's great. But sometimes you have to, I don't know. Okay. The hesitation was because I was going to say it's going to say something that's critical. Now I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Anthony Davis, this is on you. And what I mean by that is you're too damn good to allow yourself to just be completely, not even subjugated, but completely ushered to the corner for the second half of games. It oftentimes happens in just the fourth quarter, but there have been many instances where Anthony, the ball's going through him. He's active. He's aggressive. He's crashing the boards. He's knocking down. He's even knocking down the midi. He's hitting his free throws. He's he's applying rim pressure. He's defending, and then suddenly, sometimes caused by his teammates, sometimes caused by strategy, sometimes out of nowhere Darvin would just ice him out and pull him out in the middle of a great stretch. A lot of different causes. But Anthony Marshawn Davis, this is on you. You're too damn good to allow yourself to be to be relegated to just a side or a secondary guy. So I guess the better answer to your question from earlier of what I'm going to be watching is, can JJ Redick tap into that? Can JJ Redick and his crew, Nate McMillan, I don't care who does it, whomever, I don't care if it's a ball boy, can you tap into getting Anthony Davis to be the mean Anthony Davis for the bulk of the minutes? If you do that, we might have some action. If you can't, and he continues to just, fade away, fade off into the distance. And for the record, Anthony Davis is my favorite player in the NBA right now. So nobody's saying, don't say I'm being a hater. Y'all see it too. Y'all know it. But if you can do that, you might be cooking with gas.
Do you think if they put the ball in his hands more that it will end up increasing? He's done a good job of cutting out the really long mid-range jumpers the past couple of years. We've seen that share. If you rewind 2 years ago, I think it was 20-something% of his shots. Last year's only 13%, about the same the year before. But if you put the ball in his hands more, do you think they're at risk of that, him not getting to the rim as much as a play finisher? Or is it that going to be more about the surroundings, where if there's stuff happening away from the ball that defenses have to react to, he can put the ball in his hands and get to the basket anyway?
That I think it's closer to. I think it's going to be more of that, specifically because when they put him in positions to be successful, he has shown that he can do these things. But it can't just be him ISO'd on the wing and say go to work. You know what I mean? Which is what Darvin was, which is what the staff was doing last year. Even when they would look to feature him, they were just like, okay, you got it, big man. It would be great if he were able to just cross somebody up. That's that's not there. Put him in spots, get him some big to big action, have movement around him, have some motion, off ball picks around, move, again, a modern offense around what I consider an incredible weapon. It's going to look better. I genuinely believe it's going to look better.
Max Christie was talking to, I think it was Johan Buha of The Athletic, about what JJ Redick wants him to do on this team. And he mentioned on offense specifically, it was to bring the motion shooting element. What do you sort of make of the impact that Max Christie can have? Do you think he's good enough for that expanded type of role on the offensive end? Is he someone that defenses will gravitate towards, which in turn then opens things up for everybody else?
I think just with his activity, he and his athleticism and his size at his position, he can cause some problems. I think because, to your point, he's not going to be the focus of the defense in a lot of scenarios, especially if he's playing off of both AD and LeBron, and he'll be able to operate. It could provide another element that the offense was lacking last year. There are no guarantees. I'm always going to use the sandwich technique. There are absolutely no guarantees that comes to fruition. There are no guarantees that he, with additional opportunities, becomes a guy that say, you can count on 37% from deep or more. There's no guarantees of that. I think the pieces are there. I like Max Christie. I was disappointed in the staff last year, especially when it was obvious that they weren't going anywhere, that they didn't work to develop him, that they didn't work, especially when like, and then like on the flip side, when Gabe, Vincent, like all of their guards were hurt at one point, that they didn't do anything with Jalen Hood-Schifino in order to at least see what they had there in terms of a player. And I'm not bringing him up to say that I'm expecting huge things out of him. But my point is, at least see what you got. Max has shown, I'll be honest with you, some talent and shown some capability, but we don't know. We'll see. That's not a cop out. That's an honest answer. We'll see.
Do you have any impressions of what he is defensively? Pete from Laker Film Room did a terrific video on like Max Christie. He's 6'6", 6'9" wingspan. That's fine. Mm-hmm. But when you go watch him on defense, and Pete was pointing this out, like he prefers to use space. Like he's not going to blanket guys, keep up with them that way. He's going to use space to his advantage. I think that's smart and useful as a secondary defender. But like if the Lakers are viewing him as like this primary wing checker, which might be a fair assumption in some of these lineups because who else is going to take on that role? There are going to be guys that are able to exploit that, like that are going to be more physical with him. And I'm wondering if he is going to be able to hold up to that. Do you have just any, we didn't see enough of him last year, but do you have any just impressions of what he can bring defensively?
Shout out to Pete. Pete does incredible work. In fact, he's, one of my favorite, basketball content creators.
And now he's untethered from the confines of working for the Lakers. I love it.
And there you have it.
I wish him nothing but the best. If he wanted to stay, he would still be there. Let me be clear. I'm not
exactly. No. I'm with you. No, 100%. Like him, I agree. I think that, I think Max has shown, some capabilities. I would venture to say the approach probably had more to do with him being a young player that, was going to get called for any incidental contact whatsoever. Because he did run into that at least initially when he was trying to get up with people. I think the more time he has out there, he'll be able to just kind of like learn people on an individual basis and kind of like be able to adjust depending upon who he's going against. And on the flip side of that, I think the more time, the more reps he gets, the more the refs will acknowledge like, this is just a young player attempting to make his way on this side of the ball. We don't necessarily we can give him a little bit more friendly of a whistle. Look, I could be 100% wrong. I think Max Christie is going to have the type of, all right, here, each year I give you one of these. I think Max Christie could have the type of year that, say, Austin had a couple of years back. And I'm not talking about the same type of player, but I mean that type of impact where it's like, hey, we weren't anticipating this, but this is, this very clearly elevated them, elevated the offense. In particular, with Reaves, but with Christie, I think on both sides of the ball, if he's given enough time, there could be that type of impact. And I'm speaking of like 2 years ago for Reaves.
I will say, I do think because a lot of the comps I saw for him were like very offensive oriented, and when you go back and watch, like there's a lot more defense there. I've seen some people throw out like he could be a Mikal Bridges type of player. I think that's probably like the 100th percentile outcome for him. But I do think that he has I know people kind of laughed at the 4-year, $32 million deal, and it's the Lakers I do find it funny that he was mentioned as a reason that they like JJ Redick as the hire. But I really do believe that there might be like a two-way. I don't mean role players a denigration, but someone who is in the closing five of a good team. Like it seems like he could be that type of player.
I would agree with that. I think that potential is there. And hey, look, man. When it comes to people laughing at the contract, the funny thing is like that's actually a pretty good contract if you think he has any talent whatsoever. Moving forward. Also, they were in a position where if they didn't, at the very least, retain their own guys, this summer would have been a travesty, like just a total travesty.
I think what I get a kick out of is one, they very much seem to prioritize like Talen Horton-Tucker and now Max Christie more than someone who had proven to contribute on a title team like Alex Caruso. So that's the joke. And the other thing is, again, Max Christie might be a great player, but this is why you don't include it. Why is there a player option? What was Max Christie's leverage to get a player option? What was Talen Horton-Tucker's leverage aside from being with Clutch Sports to get a player option?
Okay, so that's the quiet part. And again, People think I'm being too harsh on the
Did
front
Reaves get a?
office.
I'm sorry. Did Reaves
They've
get a
been
player
giving
option
player
too?
options to a lot of people. A lot of guys have gotten player option to where it's like, okay, I mean, like, I'll just ask it exactly as you ask. What have these guys done to to negotiate that?
We both know teams more than ever are like they just don't offer restricted free agents. Like they just don't. Like there wasn't one restricted free agent offer sheet signed this summer, and I think last year, maybe I'm mistaken, there was one, and it was Utah doing its fuckery with the Paul Reed deal, which by the way I love. I'm here for the gamesmanship, but like I think that's why people are. I'm sure there are people that just don't know who Max Christie is, and because the number is fine. He's making Zeke Naji money, and he's better than Zeke Naji already.
There you go. Yeah.
But I think it's the player option of it all, and the fact that they've made all these other guys, except the best one of them all, and Alex Caruso, the priority.
The Caruso thing is it continues to haunt because it was like, look, I try not to just like shit on guys, you know what I'm saying? Because like at the end of the day, to acknowledge for the folks that are listening, we recognize when we're saying that this isn't a good player, we're not saying that we're better. Like these guys know more about basketball, but Talon Horton-Tucker wasn't a good player, and that was evident. Like yes, like I was intrigued by his length, and like
he had Gumby arms, and that was like, oh, and he dribbles.
Exactly, but he wasn't he that should not have been the decision. Very and that is very clear at this stage. I'm just okay. So another thing I'm looking for is for the front office to show some growth. Is for the front office to recognize from their past mistakes and not continue to make them. I'm less cautiously optimistic about that, but I'm hopeful.
So I don't know what this is. Is this called sound bait when it's a podcast? Is it still clickbait? I have to ask about Bronny James is my point. So
got it.
Do you have any impressions of him? Do you think that he'll get any sort of shot? Is this all just going to be, with the G League team? Like, what is just by the way, we've said this, it's been belabored to death. It was the 55th pick. Everybody just STF.
Thank you.
Like it was the 55th pick. Like let's move on. And the other thing is, before he had that heart episode, like this was someone who was considered a real prospect, independent of being LeBron James's son. And so if you want to take a flyer on him in the 30s, and by the way, if I was another team, I just would have done it as the game. Like, would the Lakers give us anything to get the Bronny James pick? But like, at the end of the day, it was number 55. Like, and I'm saying this now because it's going to be a topic of conversation again. Some point. It's going to come back around.
I just hope he stays healthy. I do anticipate him playing a lot in the G League because I think that's like kind of the level where he is right now. Yeah, he'll get a shot here and there. They'll find a way to have a special night for him, or maybe he works himself. Maybe he outworks Hood-Schifino. Maybe he outworks all those guys.
Who gets more minutes with the big club, Bronny or Hood-Schifino?
Whichever one honestly looks better. Like
you would hope that that's the case, but.
No, I think they've already look. If folks are worried about like, oh man, it's LeBron, they already did him the solid. They are even acknowledging that yes, I would have done the same thing because it's the 55th pick. They did him the solid. They got him, his son is on your son is on an NBA team and got his deal taken care of before other guys.
That's the thing people could take issue with.
Oh no, yeah. If you want to make fun of that,
all these other second round picks got like basically kind of the same deal. He got a little bit more guaranteed money, and LeBron took a pay cut. It evens out. Like what? I don't care.
There it is. But I'm saying that to say I don't have any expectations for him. I hope that I truly pray that they do not have expectations for him, and like basically any contribution whatsoever from Bronny should be gravy on top of a great meal, as opposed to like a side. You know what I'm saying? Or as opposed to your protein. If you're going into this season expecting, oh no, well we do, be for real. I almost said be something else for real, but be for real. Okay, it's just I'm hopeful. I just hope he stays healthy. That's all. That's about all I can give you.
So we did an exercise on this podcast leading into the draft where like I won't pretend to be a draft expert. We do crash courses, Grant and I, before the draft. So Grant was asking me for comparisons if these NBA players hit like their best case outcomes. Do you know who I gave for Bronny James? Real sound bait right here. Okay. If you had to guess, it was a guard. I'll give you that.
Let me see.
An active guard.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say what, like Tony Allen. Let me see. And to be clear, like that would have been a ridiculous one if that had been. Oh, so yeah, an active guard. Shake Milton? No, I don't know. What did you?
I said Drew Holiday.
Oh,
If everything
okay.
panned out, I
If
see
everything,
I
I got you.
I don't. By the way, I would bet my life savings against it.
Yeah.
But that was I was like, I kind of see the theory of what this player could. Maybe I have was overexposed to him. It would be a really cool story if he
Oh,
turned into a legitimate NBA. Like, what if he was just I'm trying not even an all-star, but just someone who's in like the seventh
a
best player
rotation
on really
guy.
good teams. Yeah.
That would be amazing. Like the Lake. Okay, so that would be one of those where it's like people. And
Then the Lakers will let him walk to the Bulls or something when he's a
no. Actually, it's even worse. That would 100% be the scenario where people are like, the fucking Lakers always just get lucky. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes we do. Sometimes it is a matter of just getting lucky. Sometimes it's a matter of putting yourself in the position. But no, that would be amazing. I'm not going to hold my breath for that, especially not in his rookie campaign. But I will say that's a hell of a comp. And if he could, even if he were the great value, Drew, I mean, like even if he were the 75% of what
straight to streaming service.
straight to streaming,
Would that be the modern?
would be
We can't say straight to VHS anymore, right?
yeah,
Straight to
exactly.
DVD.
Straight to streaming. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so the other player I want to ask you about before we get into the cookie cutter portion of the podcast, Austin Reaves, and I know I troll it with his age. He's still young, but he is talked about in terms where it feels like there are parts of his game that he can still dramatically improve. When you look at that, is there an area that you could realistically see, oh, Austin Reaves gets better? Or if we reach the point where we know who Austin Reaves is, the contract still looks really good, he's going to get incrementally better. And maybe that takes the form of, hey, he takes more catch and shoot threes and they actually go in.
I would, if I were a betting man, I would bet on the incremental improvements as opposed to another leap. Now, look, hey, I'd love to be wrong. And if he ends up taking a leap and he winds up just blowing us out of the water this year, and folks want to come back and say this, you go for it, enjoy. My my honest assessment is that I think we see what Austin is, and it's a very solid player and a guy that can it can be a very good piece of a good team. You don't want to be over reliant upon him. Like if you're asking Austin to be your second best player for long periods, it might not be as realistic. But if you can go into a situation where he's your fourth or fifth best player, I still think you got action. So I'm not anticipating a huge leap, but I do think Austin will continue to serve his role.
I will say, if you were to ask me to rank the players who will benefit most from JJ Redick being there, Max Christie might be one because I think he's going to play. So that just might be
finally,
whatever. Right. But I look at what Austin Reaves can do as someone who's gets downhill, willing to move off the ball, willing to screen away from the ball. And I just think about what I've heard JJ Redick talk about on TV and on the very few podcasts of his that I have caught, his YouTube stuff or his monologues. And I'm like, that might be, if you're really going to argue that Austin Reaves has this next frontier to conquer and a next gear to hit to where he is, like you framed it, if you're asking him to be your second best or third best player on a contender consistently, it might be a stretch right now. But his pathway to that, when I think about what I believe JJ Redick's about and what Austin Reaves is willing to do, I'm like, well, maybe that's kind of it. But I'm also kind of like, well, do the Lakers have still the spacing necessary to capitalize on everything that Austin Reaves is willing to do? And even he's pretty good on the ball too, by the way. I don't need to dismiss that.
Okay. Honestly, you might be selling me even more, given the circumstances. And then ultimately, I'm gonna circle back at the end of the year and say, "You son of a no, no, I kid. No, but no. To your point, yes, if anyone's going to benefit, I think it's going to be like you said, Christie, because he's finally actually going to get see some run. I think Reaves will, and you know what? As funny as it's going to sound, especially given some of his comments about this player, prior to taking the job, I think Anthony Davis, like I said, this to me is either going to be, like I said, either going to be his best year, and we're like, God dang, Anthony, this is the Anthony Davis that we wanted to see, or it's going to be a frustrating one where again that opens up the conversation for a lot of different things at the deadline and in the offseason.
I actually forgot to ask you about Dalton Knecht. Do you have any early impressions on him? And then is this someone that you as a rookie on a team with, I'm assuming, immediate expectations? Is he someone that you envision playing this year?
I do. And the thing of it is I think they're going to need him to. They don't have a lot of wings. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't have a lot of depth there. What I'm intrigued by is what he's going to look like defensively. Can he guard twos? You know, I mean, can he move his feet well enough to guard, like consistently guard twos? Can he take the physical, punishment that's going to come with running and chasing threes and, running, he's going to get run off of screens. It's going to be, teams are going to, play him physically, even when he's on the defensive end. So I'm intrigued to see what that looks like. But in terms of, overall expectations, I think he's going to be a contributor. How much he's going to be able to contribute early on is probably going to be dependent upon, if he's able to grasp all the different concepts, if he's able to be at least an effective defender. But in terms of prospects and to the point that you made earlier, I am far from a draft expert in any way. I am taken from the experts when I say this. It seems as though he was one of the more polished products that were out there, at least offensively. So I am happy that you're able to bring him in again. To the point that you made earlier about the summer league. Summer league, take summer league action for what it is. He looked after that first performance, he looked very comfortable. And that was good to see. It was good to see him, even though, he didn't necessarily shoot well in his first couple games. He actually looked comfortable getting that shot off. And that, that was a plus for me. We'll see in terms of how much he's in the rotation, but I think he genuinely will be in the rotation.
I'd be curious to see what he ends up being defensively and what types of players he can cover, because I don't know that I look at him from what, again, little I guess I know and have seen of him as someone who's going to be very good defensively, but like he's just a little bit longer than you think. And he has that, his standing reach was like 8'8" or something, which is like, I'm pretty sure, I guess I should look and see if that's relative to him being 6'5", but I think that's pretty like a big deal. So if he can hold up defensively, like if you can throw him on twos and certain threes, like that's a really big deal for this team.
Huge deal. Huge deal. Because like, quite frankly, last year, the only player that they had that was even doing a halfway decent job with regularity was Taurean Prince. Like guarding twos and threes. He was the only one. No, like, and this is the thing. I'm not even trying to knock him, but like that's all they had.
I also have to talk about another player, a mea culpa here, because I didn't really buy into. I thought the Rui Hachimura deal last summer was just kind of like and the trade itself, they didn't give up a ton to get him. He's been really good, and I've been impressed with his ability. I didn't see him fitting in as an ancillary device on the offensive end, and he's done such a good job to me of being like plug and play for them. He's cut down on like those junky mid-rangers too. And it feels like he's just making quicker decisions, like with or without the ball. Would have been like, what's impressed you the most about that kind of, he's been with them, what, a year and a half now? Like, what's been your impressions of that Rui Hachimura experience?
When Rui has it going offensively, honestly, he has been a positive player for them. I'll actually start with the negative, with him. He gets lost defensively in ways where I'm just like, what are you doing?
Honestly, if he's not first team, he's second team. All that dude looks way like that. He should be way better defensively. Like,
yes, he's got the body, he's got the strength, he can move his feet. He can, but he just, I don't know if it's gets lost in the concepts or whatever the case. I don't want to, make any accusations, but what I will say is when I'm watching him out there, he gets lost. But circling back to the offensive end, yes, he was far less reliant on the random 17 seconds left on the shot clock, pull up 15-footer over two sets of outstretched hands. He's not doing that nearly as much as before. The way you described it, I think, is actually perfect. He has become again, especially if the outside shot is going, but he's not afraid of cutting. He's not afraid of crashing the glass. He's he has been a good plug and play guy for them in whatever role they've asked him to fill on the offensive end. It really is just a matter of honestly, can he be with it enough defensively to not negate anything that he gives you offensively?
Yeah, I mean, like he's getting guarded on some of his threes now. I think that might be the biggest compliment I could. But like defenses, they're not like frantically freaking out about it. But like they care if Rui Hachimura is open for three. That's a big deal.
It matters when he's on the wing. So and like that in itself is a plus. Yeah.
I believe, Jabari, if you are ready, it is time for our cookie cutter portion of the podcast.
All right.
So let's start here. Is there anything about this team in general weakness, strength, storyline development, whatever, that's flying under the radar that you think deserves more shine?
I think that anytime it comes to the Lakers, everybody's going to be, it's either the sky is falling or the house is burning or whatever the case may be. I think again, and when I refer to them as a middle of the pack team, some Lakers fans or some people will be bothered by that, but actually it's a compliment. They're not this is not a bad roster. It's excuse me, it's not a bad team, all things considered. It's just a flawed roster. So once again, this goes to there are moves and they have flexibility that they could actually get this thing in order in similar ways to and it's an opinion, in similar ways to how they did at the deadline 2 years ago. I do think that there's enough there and they have enough pieces, whereas they may not be able to put together the most impressive package for like a Donovan Mitchell or any name out there. But I do think that they could operate around the margins and even to the level of a guy like some of the bigs that I mentioned earlier. I think they can do that. So to me, it's more of everybody's going to act like the sky is falling if they were to start out 5-7. But no, this is a solid team, and quite frankly, that actually puts more pressure on JJ and crew, in my estimation, because you're not going into it completely digging out of a hole. You just got to make you're just going to have to find a way to make the most of what you got while they're figuring out what they're going to do with the rest of that roster.
So you take stock of the roster right now when we're in mid-September. What is its biggest need, in your opinion, that they need to address?
Point of attack defender. It would have been great if you had Vando and his flexibility. It would be great if you were to tell me that Gabe Vincent is just going to return to form, and they don't have enough point of attack defense, in my estimation. I also think that they should have addressed like I said, the lack of a big. You have your guy coming out actively advocating once again for that, and that should not be the case, because again, you should have had some conversation with him over the course of the summer or leading into the summer, and you probably should have addressed that. But yeah, no, that's sorry. Wait, what? I actually lost my train of thought because I circled back to that. What was the initial question again?
What's the biggest roster need to you as of mid-September before training camp?
Point of attack defender, which would be great if it could come from the wing. And
that's what I don't even care. I just need like another wing body on this. Like
that's what
someone
I'm saying.
Who's between 6'7" and 6'9".
Would be nice.
Not like can play the 2, 3, and 4. Like it's just, I guess Rui Hachimura and LeBron are the closest they come to having the wing archetype on this team. And I guess Cam Reddish counts, but does he really?
No, he doesn't. Right. Like I'm like, okay, again, like I tried to drink the Cam, Kool-Aid last year and realized very quickly, oh no, that's not that's Tampico. That's not the real thing. I do wish him well, because he seems like a genuine guy. He seems like a good guy. I hope that he continues to get opportunities. I just don't want it to be with my team.
So at full strength, when looking at the top 10 rotation, from the stuff that you have said, it seems like there might be 9 locks. So stop me if I'm incorrect here. So you have LeBron, D'Lo, Reaves, Rui, AD, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, if he's healthy, Max Christie, and then Dalton Knecht would bring you to 9.
Yeah. I think where you have it is probably where it will eventually be, in terms of like Christian Wood would be the next guy, like when he's back and available. Obviously, if you still got Jackson in the mix, and to be clear, like when my criticisms of Jackson, when I'm saying he's light and ass, I'm not. Not everybody's going to be a big bruising guy. So there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with him being a rim runner. Nothing wrong with him being like your third big. Nothing wrong with that at all. We just, we know what we need, man. We know what we need. I think it's probably going to look like that. Honestly, I think you probably nailed it. And depending upon
any changes to the starting 5 happening at all, or is it just going to be, as of right now, Rui, AD, Reaves, D'Lo, and LeBron?
I think if Christie gets in there and shows that he has continued to improve, I could see him jumping into that starting 5 for one, to get another guy with some length, another guy that can defend, and another guy with some athleticism, and that can simply move. I could see him replacing one of those guards.
Would you think D'Lo would be the one that you pull there and have his creation come off the bench at that point?
Yes, especially because D'Lo is a microwave guy. D'Lo can get, once he gets it going, he can get it going. I don't necessarily, think that you need that to be in the starting lineup. I recognize that he would probably prefer it, but yeah, of the two, D'Lo would be the guy that I made the sixth guy.
Now, while this is to some extent matchup dependent, if you had to guess what their most used crunch time unit will be this year, is it just the starters, or do you think that you'll see different combination emerge as sort of the go-to clutch lineup?
I think it'll start off like kind of defaulting to the starters, but really, like, say for instance, Vanderbilt is eventually available. I would definitely, to your point, it'll be situational. If he's got it going, in either way, or if you need some defensive stops, or you're going to need some, additional length, and guys that can switch on the, along the perimeter as well as recover to the weak side. You're going to want him in there. But ultimately, he's not available. So I look at that, I look at the best five, and it's probably those starters that you have there lined up.
Is there a weirdo, wacky, wonko, funky lineup you would like to see them try?
Sure. Give me Austin. Yeah, actually, give me what I just referred to. It's not even weird or wacko. Give me substitute D'Angelo for Max Christie. Or okay, if you want to get super funky, in stretches where you have both D'Lo and Austin off the court, let me see what Dalton Knecht can do alongside Max Christie. It might get real ugly, but let me see it.
I want to see LeBron plus the kids, both his literal kid and then the figurative kid. So LeBron, Bronny, Dalton Knecht, Max Christie, and then I have to call Austin Reaves a kid because the Lakers are a kid. There's really no other option.
Yeah,
so you could throw AD in there if you don't want to have Austin. That would make more sense. But the funky lineup I want to see is LeBron plus his children, both literal and figurative.
That is fair. Look, I said everything I've said over the course of this show. We might see that lineup. Shit, I don't know. Like, there may be times where we see that.
I mean, at some point, you have to imagine LeBron and Bronny will be on the court together.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
I think that lineup where LeBron is your de facto five is just a non-starter, but it would just be fun, like LeBron and then like just all these kids, including his actual child.
or Jackson Hayes at the five. There you go. If you want,
I'd rather honestly, please just put AD in at the five at that point. And Austin.
Well, yes, I mean, really, that is the answer. But no, if we were going quirky, anyhow, yeah. There are not. I'll say this: on top of there not being a lot, as many storylines to actually discuss with this team, there aren't as many of the fun, quirky lineups to discuss with this roster because
they're built. If they want to get weird, like they got to veer into like some sicko territory to do it. And I just don't know. Like it would be on paper, whatever lineup they roll out to meet that criteria would just be so incoherent that you wouldn't expect it to work.
And the other team, you might catch the other team off guard, like, wait, what?
Right.
What is this? Who am I getting?
Bronny at the five? What is going on here? So as we record this on September the 14th, their over-under is at 43.5, Jabari. Are you going over or under on that win total?
Well, I think I probably already gave up the game a little bit with that because I acknowledge I think they're probably a middle-of-the-pack team, whether, a lot of this is contingent upon how many games are AD and LeBron going to play. If you tell me that they both play around 70 games, I think that they'll win probably right around 44, 45, 45 games. So I'm going to be, cautiously optimistic about that and say like, yeah, I'll take the over, not way over. I think this is about a 44, 45 team, win team. Again, that's not sexy, but that's about, as currently constituted, that's about where I've got them.
The thing Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, am I crazy on that? Like from the outside looking in, like is this a 35 win team?
No, I mean there are probably if AD or LeBron, one of them misses any extended amount of time, then yes, that is absolutely in play. Okay. But and also you could say, well, everyone has an injury caveat. But it's like, well, LeBron's in his age 40 season, and Anthony Davis is always dealing with something, and that's the thing that's really tough for me to reconcile with them is that Anthony Davis and LeBron just played in 66 games together, and yet the Lakers won like 47 games. It's okay. It's good. It's not great. You got that type of availability from your two best players who have not had that type of availability, one, in forever individually, and two, basically never together. I don't remember how much they played together during that title season, and that was broken up by the COVID pandemic, of course. So that's what's going to be. I haven't done my win predictions yet, but that's what's going to be tough because this is a good team on paper, but without one of LeBron or AD, you're absolutely cooked. And typically at the stages of their careers, well, for LeBron, but then also just what we've seen with AD in the past, you would expect one of them to miss semi-significant time.
And on top of that, you don't even have the depth that you might have had for both of their positions. With Vanderbilt and Christian Wood being out, you don't even have the guys that you named last year that, hey, you know what, when you were saying things like we won't have to place as much on AD's shoulders. We won't have to, burn LeBron out. Yeah, you're going to have to. And yeah, look, I don't want to end on a negative note, but I will say this. I expect the Lakers to be, honestly active at some point during the year because they just can't risk burning those guys out. And I can't entirely waste another season of those guys.
No, you can't. And I think that would be the argument of waiting out for the bigger fish because you want someone who can carry the minutes when one or both of them are off the court or when one or both of them need to miss time or take nights off. And that would be the theory. But we can end on a high note, or at least a fun note. Is there I'll boil it down to one. An under the radar, not talk like I don't want Trae Young as the answer. I don't want Zach LaVine as the answer. Is there just an under the radar trade target? I don't care if it's a pipe dream. I don't care if it's not ambitious enough that you would like to see this team monitor or actually go after. Because their team, I know we haven't started the season yet, but there are like a couple of teams. We actually just went through 10 of them, Grant and I. Recently, but there are at least like probably 3 to 5 teams where it's no, these fuckers need to make a move, and the Lakers are one of like I don't need to see the games being played to know that this team needs to make a move.
Okay, here's one for you. People will say like, "Oh man, you want to go?" Kyle Kuzma would be great on this team. I'm sorry. I know. Trust me, believe me. Kyle Kuzma would be great on this team. He would be great on this team.
You'd be honestly, I'm assuming you won't have like if they had to trade Rui back to Washington, that'd be just weird. But if you were able to keep Rui as part of that, you would pass to like being so huge. If you're playing Rui, Kuzma, AD, and LeBron together, and then really who else at that point? It doesn't matter. I like that.
I'm just saying.
Go ahead. Also, no, please go ahead.
If you want to get silly with it, you could do it, make it a larger deal and go after Kuzma and Valanciunas. And then we're having a different conversation here, man.
Then you're really
we're having
big.
Then we're having a different conversation. So I don't know, man. Like that's not sexy, but that's kind of where I would go.
So I have one that's like you wouldn't do this if it's going to cost you like real pick equity and you need to get to a point where it's like it's probably Gabe Vincent plus another contract. And then like, if they're willing to do it for seconds, and he's also injury prone, but talking to you made me like this one. Do you see where I'm going with this?
I'm wondering, he's
Robert Williams III. JJ Redick would do filthy things with him if he's healthy on this team. Now, the if of the health is we already got AD, LeBron is 40. Do we want to add another variable into the equation? Again, if it's costing you Gabe Vincent, a smaller contract, and then second rounders, I'm doing it in a heartbeat because he can play next to AD. He's a good passer out of the short roll. And if he's healthy, he doesn't need to be like him and AD flying around. Like that is nasty shit. Yes. And I really, I was going to give you a wing or maybe like an advantage creator. But after talking to you, not that I don't want Jonas Valanciunas on this team. Like I need my big to be more versatile if I'm the Lakers and I'm investing in that. I would love to see RW3 on a bunch of teams at this point, but now I'm married to RW3 on the Lakers.
If it's a deal like you just described, give me that every day of the week. If you had to give up real, like a real contract, that sounds so disrespectful. If you had to give up a player that's higher in your rotation,
I would frame it this way. You can't give up a first or Dalton Knecht, even though I think now, if you told me for the next 2 years, which is how long he's under contract, Robert Williams is going to play in a total of 140 regular season games over the next 2 years. I would give up Dalton Knecht. But because you can't say that,
You don't
that's
know.
why
Yeah.
it's where it's again. I think it has to be how low are the Blazers willing to sell because they have a trillion bigs themselves. But RW3 and Anthony Davis could be a hellacious defensive duo for sure.
I love the thought of that. And again, this is all, recognizing he's got some serious, health. I'd be more concerned with him than I am with AD, and that is saying some shit. Okay, like that.
He's also so much younger. Isn't he like only 26? How old is Robert Williams? Like,
I actually have no idea. Let's see.
And he also, that's the other thing, but that might be the best of both worlds. Is he's never been someone, even when he's healthy, who plays a ton of minutes. And so, like, okay, you don't want Anthony Davis to play. He is only 26, by the way. That's wild. And he has played, by the way, in the past 2 seasons, he's played in a combined 41 games. So
yeah, okay. So
again, it's a salary, a smaller contract because you have to make the money work. And second, I'm rolling the dice because he is the peak of Robert Williams. And even if you only get him for 20 something minutes a game, that eats up time to, okay, AD's on the bench and then you can play those two together. So AD is not necessarily a full-time. He's maybe a part, like it's a co-opt at the 5. Like he's splitting his time between the 4 and the 5 at that point.
It's a legitimate risk, but it's a worthwhile risk. And it's the type of move that the organization would have made in the past and found a way to get it done for, a package that, other fan bases would end up being pissed off about. I guess I just don't have as much faith in this one. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong.
Honestly, I think and Portland valued him quite a bit in the deal when they sent out Jrue Holiday for. There's just a disconnect between, okay, we know how good he is, but Jabari, I didn't even realize this until I went to look up his age. He's logged more than 1,000 minutes in a single season once. Like that's not someone there. Like you're as of right now, maybe mid-season if he's playing well, like you're not getting a first-round pick for him unless you're taking it back like a really bad contract as part of the equation too.
Yeah, no, honestly, that might be one that they could get done. Like without it being super expensive. To be honest with you, they could get that one done and still get the Kuzma one done, and then we are.
Well, they have the contract
very fun
to do like weird things. So, like, if you can get, for sure. I mean, you could really build out the deal if they want first round picks. Like, it becomes Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams III is something you could look at doing.
Yeah, like I would be here for it. So yeah, again, this
resident
right
Lakers
here,
fan Dan Favale here to advocate for RW3 to LA.
This right here is why I was frustrated this summer because I'm like, man, there are so many different things. We don't have to go home with the 10. There are a bunch of 8s over there waiting, ready. You can have a great conversation with those 8s and still have, anyway, that's a crude reference, but I'm just saying it doesn't have to be the home run. Take some doubles and triples and even singles.
So, Jabari, you've been incredibly generous with your time as always. Is there anything else, though, about this team, the Lakers season, any specific players, something that I didn't ask you about that you would like to discuss before I let you go?
Honestly, I think we pretty much covered it all. I will say, like, I probably came across as pretty negative, this episode, but if we're being real, I was just honest. That's always going to be my squad, and I'm always going to be, hopeful, but, I'm not going to lie to you folks.
I don't think you said anything too outlandish. So I think great stuff as always. Are you able just to tell our listeners where they can find you on the social media machine?
I'm easy. I don't tweet very much anymore, but I'm at Jabari A. Davis. Again, I truly appreciate every time that you've blessed us with your presence on Mad Boosties. You can find me over there, whether I'm behind the scenes or, as Dan mentioned earlier, sometimes I will play the 6-man role and to the best of my ability.
I've never been on with you as the co-host until this last time. Was the first time that you weren't the producer of the show.
Is that really? Because I've jumped on a bunch.
I feel like it should be a stipulation now that next time, like whenever I'm on, you should make it a tricycle with the 3 of you hosting, or you have to boot one of Jack or Miles at that point.
I got to be honest with you; they might be up for that, and then I'd be setting myself up for something. But I'm here for it. I'm here for it. No, honestly, thank you very much, man. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and this was a bunch of fun as always. And as you know by now, I'll be pestering you again down the line.
Look forward to it.